We're here to talk about pedagogies of walking today. And I just thought I'd introduce the panel briefly and myself, and then each of the participants will introduce themselves and talk briefly about their projects, and then we'll have time for conversation. So walking next to a creative process and an artistic form can be a base for pedagogy, and probably you already have that sense, seeing as you've joined us today. A pedagogy that is lived, contextual, personal, creative, integral, and embodied. Walking can develop pedagogical methods that may be applied to diverse groups. The paradigms that are presented show the emancipatory potential of walking and its educational possibilities. Students are connected to the environment, with their colleagues, with the social environment that surrounds them. And so the experience of walking as an educational method and the knowledge that derives from as an outcome can be empowering to the individual in a very characteristic way. And I think we'll be able to tease out some of those ways and ideas today just to get us beginning the conversation. So I'm Julie Poitras Santos. I'm calling in from Portland, Maine in the United States, where I work as an artist and a curator. I'm at Maine College of Art, where I have a position as Director of Exhibitions in our ICA here. I also have worked for many years as a professor, and I taught a walking art course for a number of years where we looked at art practices through kind of the 20th century and contemporary arts that engage with walking in many different ways. I also run Platform Projects Walks, which is a platform for free artist-led walks and community engagement that I've been doing for 5 years now. And this past year, during the pandemic, I organized a project called Ecologies of the Local, which brought together 23 artists and scientists to think through climate shifts and changes in our local environment, our local climate changes, through walks, talks, and also a gallery exhibition. So I'm really excited to be here with these great educators, artists, and thinkers today, and really to learn from you all in our conversation. So I'm going to ask everyone just to introduce themselves by name, tell us where you're calling in from. I know not in Prespa, and then give us a 3-minute synopsis about your work to get us going, and then we'll follow with a number of questions and some conversation. So maybe Dioni, you could begin.
Yes. Hello, my name is Dioni Lampiri. I'm from Greece. I'm a conservator of antiquities and works of art, and I'm a MSc holder in Cultural Heritage Management. I also recently graduated from the MSc program Applied Clinical Sociology and Arts. I learned all about walking art and all of this mean of art and tool of psychosocial improvement through this MSc program. I'm very happy that I'm among you tonight, and I'm also among my supervisors of my MSc thesis, Mr. Chtouris and Mr. Ziogas. My research for this MSc program was, I believe, an exciting example of the term walking as pedagogies in relationship to the psychosocial empowerment of a small interracial group of teenagers just before the COVID era began. In this research, I examined the possibility of the monumental and cultural heritage to support and empower an intercultural group of adolescents from Greece and from Syria, which were participants of a program called Mythologies of My Place. It took part from November 2019 to March 2020, and it examined how the contact with the monuments and the walking process had a positive impact on them on social and psychological level. Through the analysis, the results showed the psychotherapeutic function of art, the psychosocial empowerment through the process of walking, and the possibility of recalling positive emotions and mental uplift through memory. From the processing of the material I collected, it appears that the program brought multiple benefits, not only to the intercultural group of the teenagers, but to those who had indirect or direct involvement. Art, creativity, the use of everyday materials, excursions, games, songs, myths, and riddles are a common code that speaks easily and directly to the souls of all children, without intercultural discrimination. Also, guiding them with a creative, open, non-stereotypical, consensual, and respectful approach played a very important role in the successful outcome of the program. All respondents agreed on the importance of the process of exiting the closed environment of the camp and the process walking. Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful. Next, maybe we could hear from Anna Luyten.
Yes, hello all. I'm Anna. I left Prespa this morning at 5 o'clock, and now I'm in Thessaloniki waiting for my plane for tomorrow morning. So I miss the lake very much here, and to be back in the city is quite strange after a week of being in Prespa, but was really a wonderful experience. But I walked a lot today to discover the city here. I was never here in Thessaloniki. And what I do is I always walk. I really like to walk, and what I teach in different schools and for different people, it can be for managers, it can be for artists, for fashion designers, filmmakers, theater makers. I'm a performer and a philosopher and studied also theater and literature. And it started as a research program I coordinated a research group in the School of Arts in Ghent, what's really a big school, a school of composers, painters, designers. So a big differences, you could say, but also theater students or theater science students who followed these seminars. So it started as a research group where I was looking to the importance of wandering and making mistakes, the philosophy of failure, in fact, and how that ends, and elephant paths, and another way of thinking, spider thinking or arachnid thinking, I call it, can work on another level, so that you don't have to frame anymore, but that you can maybe more think in prismas or in the beauty of a problem. This ended in a master's seminars, and what I do very concrete in different kind of seminars is wonder. So I ask the students to leave their phones in the class and just go out and find out, or just step by step, or with different methods we explore of different artists in the past, but they also find out their own ways of thinking and walking. So to go out and have attention, this is my main purpose, to have to renovate the importance of attention and your own attention. So weaving your own tapestry or spinning your own thread in the labyrinth of Ariadne. So also love the labyrinth. What I do with managers, because I taught it also in the theater school, and there was a group of teachers who wanted to attend the classes there, and they found out that it is a very good method. I didn't know, but it's that it is a good method for managers who get stuck to change more and to be trustful in their own people. Yeah, in short, that's what I do. Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful. Ellie, would you like to jump in next?
Yeah. Hello, I am Ellie. I am from Ireland, and I am on the kind of northwest corner of Ireland at the moment. I'm a visual artist and researcher. In 2017, I started really focusing on walking in Ireland, and over several years, I walked all of a selection of Ireland's national waymark trails. So these are kind of Ireland's defined long distance roots. And it was through this that I had a lot of time to think and I got really interested in how walking is art. From there, I went into a master's where you, of course, have to look at methods and methodologies and research methods. And I became interested in how people kind of document the process, how they think about walking as an art form, and then the impact that different artists might have through their practice and how they engage with that. So for my paper for this year, I looked at how I've documented my practice through visual research journals and how artists or people in general could possibly incorporate leave no trace principles into their work by this kind of reflective method of journaling and considering their work as it progresses. And I really like thinking about this because quite often when you see an artwork or you see research, you see it at the final stage and the final outcome, and you don't see the whole thought process that led people to that point. And with Leave No Trace, it's not a case of these are the rules. It's this is a set of ethics, and each person might have a different response to the topics, and there's no right or wrong answer. So I am really interested in seeing how other artists would interpret these principles or ethics and how they would possibly change or build on them as their project or their research expanded. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Next, could we hear from Sotirios?
Yes, thank you. Thank you all for participating in this nice panel and this nice conference. I hope next year we meet all again in Prespes. And there was an opportunity to remember some activities I had in the past that I didn't call them walking, but it is a kind of this experience. Because as a researcher, we're using, we have the attitude to walk to different places and to meet people, speak with these people. This is a method that we have, and we don't call this walking or art or something like that. We call this as a normal research activity. But now it is the opportunity to reassemble all this experience and to use this as a form of research tool, more organized under the walking idea and concept. I had the experience because I started as a researcher in Germany, where I studied in Frankfurt and Kassel, where I met Lucius Burkhardt, a famous professor in Kassel. He was not so famous at that time, but later became more important. And I thought that his teaching is a little bit strange, the Spazier philosophy. Philosophie des Wanderns und des Spaziergangs. But later we have used this attitude to learn cities, the edge of the city, walking for days around the city and speaking with people in vulnerable places and in places with very big conflicts between groups, between the state and the groups, between different attitudes to organize your life in the city, everyday life. And the only method to approach this people is to walk through these places and to have the experience to sit down with them, to speak and make interviews. And this is an experience I have reapproached many times in my research, sociological research mainly. In Idomeni, I have a video also in Vimeo, this informal camp of 2015 and 16 in Greece, where 30,000 people were there. And I have also the experience with my students from a postgraduate program. Dioni is one of them, with Yanis Ziogas, to teach them to walk through these places and to approach the problems and the issues that are on site, and also to have the idea to create new concepts along this experience, not to stay in something that you already know, but you have the possibility to reconsider your ideas, your concepts, your theories. And this is our educational project. We have presented this in this PowerPoint that is already in this platform. And we are very happy that walking now it's an important issue in this conference. And I hope that next time for sociologists, Lucius Burger would be very important again, not only for the artists, and perhaps to teach them his ideas in a sociological curriculum more intensive. The other issue that I have with this idea is to introduce the soundscape of these mind concepts, to create, to create music along these mind concepts. This is not so easy because walking is not something that it's normally introduced through music or sounds, but I think sounds can be a very, very nice collaborative idea with walking concept. This is something that is very important for me, and I hope in the next time I will present something about this to extend the concept of soundscapes through the walking. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And next, can we hear from Miguel?
Hello, everyone. We are happy to be here and very pleased with your kind invitation to be here and share some of our projects and interests. So I'm Miguel Duarte, and I'm here with Natacha Moutinho, who is my colleague we are teachers at Minho University School of Architecture, Art and Design in Portugal. So the practice of walking encompasses our teaching methodologies in all our graduations, specifically in architecture and visual arts. Walking is an integral part of the strategies we use to teach subjects such as drawing, observation skills, sensory development, body experience, and collaborative and collective work. So walking appeals to the dimension of the collective and the act of doing something, and for that it has a pedagogical dimension. We propose students to walk, to drift or to roam in the territory where they will live and study for the next years. So they are invited to look, to observe, be attentive to the territory, to the landscape, their surroundings, using their body, their senses, exploring emotional world of feelings. So they explore through their subjective self, a construction of a possibility, building a mental reality connected to the landscape, intertwined with the path, but responding with and through the previous and individual archive knowledge. So we promote this through dialogue and represent our results, mapping or drawing or building images that present hypotheses and explore what words cannot. So since 2016, we have been in contact with Gert to develop the walking practices in the north of Portugal, And in 2018, we organized the first walking body workshop along with Stefan van Biesen and me, Mester. It coincided with the opening of the first year of the course of visual arts and becoming a landmark for the following years. And in last year, in 2020, the walking body was focusing on the more sensitive students' experience, but the confinement started on the previous meeting day. So we expect to return into 22 with a new workshop in this subject. So thank you to you all. So in the Walk, Listen, Create platform, you have the website link from the previous workshops. So feel free to explore and to do some questions if you if you like. Thank you to all.
Great, thank you so much. It's wonderful to hear from you all and learn a little bit of what you're doing. I thought I'd just structure the panel with a few questions directed at individuals or a number of folks, and then please feel free to jump in if you have something to add to the question as well. But I'd like to start by thinking about, this experience we all have that walking contributes to a embodied form of learning. Of course, we move slow ways. It's a slower way of moving than perhaps many other ways of moving through the landscape, be they vehicular or otherwise. And so that slower movement can contribute to a more sensate experience, a way in which our senses may engage more fully with the world we're moving through. Something that's interesting about that is that I think it gives us a more complete text or even a kind of archive of material, and that material can then be quite extensive. And so I'd love to hear from a few of you about that experience of accessing a kind of richer text as we understand a site, but then also how you cohere and communicate that material, or if it's necessary. I think I would direct this first towards Anna in terms of your work. You really talk about a sort of research-oriented process where you're looking towards the process itself and how students can garner and gather new information, and as a philosopher, thinking through the kind of embodied expanse of what walking offers us. And then maybe Ellie, you could pick that up from your work in terms of these maps that you create, or these visual research documents that expand upon your experience in terms of walking.
It's a nice question, Julie. Of course, it's true you have a lot of material, and especially when you teach different kinds of people, like a fashion designer has sometimes other material than a movie maker or someone who is a composer, or I also have people who are building instruments, music instruments in my classes, or a psychologist. So. But that's really interesting, and it's already said, and what I see is the first thing people do is make drawings, talk. It's also an assignment that I give, talk to a stranger and ask his or her name. That seems to be the most difficult, but come back with a story of someone else and how it interweaves with your narratives. So sound, mapping, a lot of. I also ask really everything. Steal words when you are on a tram, or when you are sitting on a bench, when you're hanging out as a method, an important method, I think. Steal the words around you and just don't judge. So at the end, we have a lot of material, and it's a very practical way of working. I call it a logbook, like the way people who were sailing, were keeping diaries to know where they were. So it can also be like, it can be everything, something you find on the ground, or And especially with people who think a lot in images, they say they don't find words, but they have the best poetry mostly of them all because they see words as an image. And then then I have like, this is very practical. After like a year, we have this amount of material and everyone finds out what kind of material he works the best or she work or they work the best with. And I, as a second editor, in fact, have looked through this material and then we discuss, what can we make out of it? And it can be a game, or it can be a little animation movie, or it can be a CD, or it can be, it can be a beautiful dress. And it's interesting to do it together with artists of different disciplines. And with performers, in fact, I have the same. They collect everything, and what's so very interesting, after 1 year of this wandering or walking classes, they still keep doing it, even when I don't teach them anymore. And they come back at the end with the performers or a lecture performance, and or something else, but it is very material and sensitive, and yeah, it's a way of collecting, and find also your own way of collecting. That's for me the most important. And yeah, I find also when I heard Ellie, I think, yeah, she has also this kind of way of how do I collect, and it's a very interesting question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think also this way that, in fact, that act of recording or documenting can help reinforce the knowledge. I mean, it's, I suppose, a question if it might also limit it. And I like what you're talking about, this sort of multidisciplinary perspective, that there are so many different ways of accessing a site through these different disciplinary models that we could keep our sort of psyche open to the possibilities. Ellie.
Yeah, I feel, I resonated with a lot of what Anna just said. Yeah, I guess for me, I have worked in this visual research diary, but it can also be, field notes system, which I think it's all about finding what works best for each individual for that kind of documentation process, because walking days I find are so rich and detailed. The amount that I seem to remember, or that I feel like happens within a day when I'm walking, is just unparalleled to normal life. And I found that the more I walk, the more I try and record things that don't necessarily seem important at the time, because for me then it's in the process of looking back through what I've recorded or found interesting in the moments that I kind of see the threads between the different elements that I wouldn't have necessarily seen in other ways of documenting the process. I include visual in the name because I do find the combination of both text, images, and whatever materials that kind of come along to be really important to kind of spark creativity for me. But I've found the documentation as much an outcome of a walk as the artwork I make afterwards, but it differs for many people. I've seen some people use blogging really, really effectively as they walk. And then you could also question as to whether or not things that seem less academic or official, or I don't know what word you want to use, like YouTube or Instagram, and these kind of how these social medias tie into that as well. Yeah, how people build those kind of visual documents as well.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I think one of the things we recognize is the kind of sheer mass of information. And so I think that's one of the questions, is how do we bring it together? And your notation and mapping process is one of those for certain that helps shape a very embodied and complex and rich experience into a different form and brings it together in a different format. I'm sure others in the panel might be able to think through with us their response to this as well, but I thought I'd bring in this notion of walking in the moment. I think we're always, also acknowledging that walking allows us to be present in the moment, and that's part of its strength, is that as we engage with a site, we are really moving in real time. And in particular, thinking about walking in the moment, of course, we've been thinking about the pandemic, but also just sort of thinking about our contemporary life, political life and otherwise. I thought I'd bring in maybe Sotirios, if you wanted to talk a little bit about the project you were working on with a group of students in terms of knowing a site, and my understanding is also knowing a site through its monuments and its locale. And then as well, I think that Dioni, you could speak to that as well. So there's really walking in real time, in contemporary moment, but also thinking about the histories encoded in the land. Those, if we think again about that rich text, there are traces and past marks in the land that key us into these histories that we're also engaging with in that real. So Sotirios, maybe you could take that up with your project.
The idea of teaching with walking is to give to the students and to us the opportunity to rediscover places, not as they are described in history books and guides or in everything, but to discover places and perhaps also our place with our social experience and also our internal experience, to project our experience to the place and to use this as a form to open some secret aspects of the place that normally are not on the table. This is it's a kind of envision. We call this the method of envision, to project our experience and our ideas and what we think, what are our main problems at this time, to project this at the place through the walking, but not only through the walking, also looking at the place and discovering some small aspects that are there, from a stone to a monument, everything. And then to describe this and let your experience flow. And this is sometimes a very, very productive experience for the students and for us to discuss all this. And many of us are saying they discover the place that they know already for 10 years, but after this form of approach, reapproaching the place, they say, now I know a new place. And also to teach, to see the relations on this place, the relations you are creating, and they are already there, to have the opportunity to underline what is important, what is less important, what is something that you can create, and something that the people are asking to you to be involved. There are many different aspects, and these are documented in protocols. And one of the protocols that we're creating is a video, a series of photos that are reassembled in a video, and also some descriptions that we are making. And also perhaps you can make also your own sounds for this. This is important, and sometimes it helps also sociologists and economists to rearrange the ideas, how they think about this place, to see things that they are not on the table, they are not in first sight, to see economic relations, exchanges, forms of solidarity that are hidden, and they are now uncovered. And this is very important for sociological research. I'm not sure if it's so important for art, but for sociological research, it's very important. And perhaps an artwork created from the students in the place, it's also very important to gather our other people around this artwork and to really discuss the ideas about this place and the problems and the issues that are there. And this is the problem of clinical sociology to intervene with therapy, to be therapeutical about this issue. This is our idea. It's not very complicated, but it needs much work.
That's great. Thank you. I mean, and could you talk to the sort of strength of discovering this information while using walking as a strategy or a tool versus other pedagogical methods? It seems, there is a difference there in terms of a student body experiencing a place through walking as a pedagogical method.
Yes, it is very important because the students, they are out, they are not, and also how can I say, the relations are different. You are not the expert, and the other on the road are the people that are giving information. You are a part of the information. You are a part of the experience. There is more symmetrical relations, or we can sometimes the people from the street, they are gain the more important role in the place, not you, and you must be ready to subordinate you in this relation. Perhaps they have their own problems that are dominant in this relation. You have to stay there and look and hear and to work with them sometimes, and to be sometimes introduced to their work. We have people in some through our walking around Athens, people, they are creating their illegal houses in some settlements, and they have let us to stay there. They forced us to stay there because we were also a good protection against the police. And we stayed there, and we see what they are doing, how they are creating their illegal house, the settlement. And this was a very, very nice protocol about how we can create in 2 days an illegal duel. And this comes through walking, because you are seeing you walking around, and they call you to stay with them. They trust you, or they don't trust you. If they don't trust you, they are a little bit angry, and you have to protect yourself, and etc., etc. There are many stories we have to tell about this experience.
Right. Thank you. Yeah. So walking also brings this relational component to bear for certain. Dioni, maybe you could follow. I know you've worked a lot with your local community and with I'd love to hear a little more about your practice and your project in relationship to walking the moment and walking history.
In my case, the teenagers, the group of teenagers, which were mainly from Syria and from Greece, from the schools around the area of Chalkida. In this case, the walking process proved to be a very big educational tool for them, in combination with the contact with the monuments. They did some excursions in the monuments or in some museums of the area, and the whole process of the walking, exiting, that was a very important issue for them. They went outside the refugee camp. They did a small excursion. It had to do with the walking process. They went around all these monuments. They learned about things. They had an interaction with the other students all together. All this process had a very big impact on them. They learned a lot of things. They had they had some new interests on art and culture. I was lucky enough to have been in contact with some students from Syria. Still, I talk with a lot of them, and they are so happy and proud that they were in this process. And the working process had a lot to do with that, because they left outside the refugee camp. It was an opportunity for them to leave the refugee camp, go outside in nature, and in touch with the monuments, and in touch with other students from other countries. And altogether, this experience was had a very big impact on them on a social level and psychologically. So I really believe that the working part was a very big issue for them. They all admit that, and they have this very nice memory of this. The bad issue on that is that what followed was the COVID era, and that took away all of these benefits, because they are now, since then, they're back in the refugee camp and they can't go out. So this is the very hard part of this. But the experience was very positive.
Yeah, it sounds amazing, really. I think that relational component, of course, comes up again. And one thing I always think of with whenever I've led courses in walking is that, of course, there are times when you gather all together in the format of a classroom, but there are plenty of times when you're in movement and you maybe are talking to one or two other people or by yourself. And so there's multi-modalities, many ways in which you may take in information and also get to know people, and that the sort of power of that quite strong, especially in this situation you're describing. So thank you. I think, one very important question or conversation to bring up, and at the start, would be thinking about essentially walking as a means to impart knowledge, and I think in your paper that you co-wrote with Anna, right? And also other folks weighed in on that. You spoke a lot about Lucius Burkhardt's science of walking, and this idea that in walking we're not separated from the landscape, not that we ever are, but that we're more conscious of, or there's more opportunity to become conscious of, the fact that we are operating from within inside this space, that we don't articulate a separateness, but that we're really engaging with our site more concretely. And so I wonder if you might take up the thought of just how tools or methods or strategies you've used as an educator and thinking about, and then perhaps Anna, you might follow with some of your experience. Miguel, can you hear me?
Sorry, I had some sound problems and I don't hear well some of your parts.
Sure. Well, I was thinking about this relationship to Lucius Burkhardt, and the idea that in walking, some of your documents, we're not separated from the landscape, but we're living inside of it. To sort of connect that idea with how we understand walking as a means to impart knowledge, how we think of it as a pedagogy, or if you don't.
Well, I think my contest personally might be different from the one from the students, and so for me, it's personally and I was asking myself how the concept of landscape could be mixed in what levels with the walking thing, you know, the motor part. So and that of course, we have times, of course, that we don't think about it. So the walking part, the walking act is that important thing that we don't think about it, and we just are absorbing experience from everywhere and don't think it's compose a landscape or what kind of landscape is if it's a soundscape or is a visual scape or another a bonescape or something, a musclescape or anything else. So, but the interesting part, I think, of having the group experience of I think that the part of the science, of course, with some commas, the science thing of walking and produce an artwork from walking or during walking. So that gathering time for the students, I think, is the most important, because I was saying I think most of them don't have that the sense of landscape yet formed. Of course, it has a lot of inputs to form the sense of landscape. It's political one, sensorial one, a lot of. So I think they don't have a profound reflection on that too. But the part of gathering all the experience that becomes knowledge. So because they share the experiences, and of course there are several inputs which they are aware of them or not. Maybe they are subconscious experiences, but they when they talk about it, and I think that when it became materialized, and that it turns a shareable knowledge. So I think, and it becomes real. I think. So, and after becoming real, of course, we could do science with it, I think. So,
Sorry, can I just do an add on Miguel's input?
Hi,
Just
Natacha.
hi, hello, Julia, hello, everyone. There's an important thing. I think it's already been mentioned. It's the sense of body and self in relation with scale and proportions and feelings and touching and skin and the way you can incorporate your understanding of the landscape or the surroundings, mix it with your own cultural background, and then confront it with your peers, which is an important thing, because in the conversation, in the discussion, where we can produce some knowledge or try to place some hypotheses to work on. We've been doing so with our teaching architecture and also visual art. There's a funny thing, because we have not stopped walking unless we are confined at home per decree, because we can do it. We can be outside in plain air. It's easier to teach outdoors than indoors. Just my input. Thank you so much.
I'm so glad you jumped in, Natasha. I can't see the whole grid, so I didn't know you were here. Wonderful. Anna, did you want to take up the topic? Do you have any thoughts on kind of walking as a means to impart knowledge? I think we've had a lot of conversation about taking in knowledge and recording it, and maybe there's this shift.
Yeah, I think it's not only taking in knowledge, but also a way of seeing knowledge, what knowledge is. I heard it earlier, like what Natacha said about the body or about sociological things. In fact, for me, it is the power of being vulnerable, because a walker, he or she or them, they are vulnerable in the landscape with your body towards other people, and also what Sophie is mentioning in the chat. Thank you, Sophie, for that question. What is this turn to attention? It is because you need it, because it's your only protection, the attention for the others, and the way how others look to you. And there is a difference between walking in the dark and walking in the light, walking in a war zone. I started these walking classes because I worked as a journalist in the 90s and in the beginning of the years 2000 in war zones, and not protected, like I was always in between the people. So you really become very aware of the gaze of other people to you, but also of your own body and how you walk. So this is also a way of gaining wisdom, and not only knowledge, but it also can change your knowledge about something. And being aware of being so vulnerable, not only for other people, but also for bears or what we had in press power, or suddenly there can happen something, or you can fall down. And in fact, walking is being vulnerable. We all forgot how difficult and how many times we fell as a baby or child before we could walk. So it has also to do with that, I think. If this is a kind of answer to the questions.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very interested in this idea that we're maybe recreating or recrafting forms of knowledge, bringing other forms of knowledge or wisdom, as you know, to the table, right? So I think that's very interesting. And your note about vulnerability also is, I think, really important. I was thinking about a question which I don't really have time for if we want to bring in folks from the audience. So please write your questions if you'd like me to answer them. I now have found where the chat is. I didn't know this format before. So please offer your questions if you'd like to bring them to the table. But I was thinking a lot about, I hadn't used the term in my head of vulnerability, but I was thinking about this discovery and wandering that you noted earlier, Anna, but also Sotirios, you were talking about listening, essentially, talking to people and receiving their information and being open to it, being open to surprise, that in a way there is a kind of process-oriented strategy that perhaps we could say, and for some of you anyway, encodes this openness or vulnerability or openness to surprise within it. So that struck me as a very important part of what you're saying, Anna, but some of the others as well. I don't see any new questions. Would anyone, Ellie, what would you like to add anything about listening or vulnerability in your practice? You've done these incredibly, are you doing them alone? And how does that play out in your research process?
I've done most of them with my partner. I've only done a few alone, which is definitely a very different experience. And I remember the first time that I walked for several days alone, I experienced this wave of vulnerability that I really didn't expect to experience. I hadn't realized just how much of an effect having another person walking with me had, even though we've walked together for years. So it's not like I feel like I was having to perform when I was walking with my partner, but there was definitely a difference. And I think it's really interesting to try and walk alone and see what those lines are. And then I guess for me as a woman, it was then trying to decide what parts of that I felt like were coming from, if it was a gender specific or if it was just a wider experience. I guess for me, the trails that I was walking, while they were all developed on this national level, very, very few people know about them in Ireland. Like very, very few. There's maybe 5 that are kind of famous, and the rest have fallen into obscurity. They'll be walking through somebody's back garden, basically, and they'll be asking, like, "Oh, why are you here?" And then you kind of go, oh, well, I'm walking this trail from this place to this place, and they know nothing about it. And yeah, I guess that kind of ties into the being open for surprise or for interactions that take you off course, because I've had wonderful experiences with people who, I guess, walking is seen as such, at least in Ireland, a very slow way of interacting with people and places, but very non-threatening way of kind of arriving. You don't just turn up, they can kind of see you coming for a while, and they might think that you're slightly eccentric, but otherwise it's led to some wonderful conversations, and people giving me an egg from their garden for their chickens to carry on with me. But yeah, I quite enjoy that how the trails in Ireland bring you through people's gardens and spaces, and through so many different landscapes, that you do experience different surprises along the way.
That's great, thank you. Would anyone else from the panel like to jump in for a few more minutes, or we can draw from, oh, here's another question. How to teach someone vulnerable how to walk?
Yeah.
From Helena.
Mm-hmm.
While being a refugee, while being a child, a woman, an LGBTQ person, sounds like that question really is about engaging. As Helena, would you like to come on and sort of refine the question, or?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes? Hello everyone. I am really upset for not being at Greece now, but I couldn't travel. So in Portugal we say that when you cannot be in some place where someone else is, you have an elbow pain. So to those that are in Greece now, and I cannot be there, I have a little bit of an elbow pain. I was talking about this because my topic of research is mobility. And one of the things that people answer me the most is I wouldn't my children could go to school walking. What might happen if they go to school walking by themselves? So what happens is that we are identifying that there are a kind of inheritance of if the father or the brother doesn't walk to school, the youngest don't do it also. Women usually in the Douro Valley, in the Valdois Valley where we are studying, mainly the women that were working 50 years ago or 70 years ago always walked to the factories. Most of them not even had a bicycle, so it was very common to have 1 hour of walking till the factory and then another hour walking back again. What happened was that as they were several women walking together, mainly they delivered themselves to the houses from one to each other, so they were never afraid. Even if they were walking during the night because of the shifts, whether if they were walking in the dawn. Nowadays, what happens is that people are afraid of walking because nobody walks. And what happens is that children don't walk alone, women mainly don't walk alone, elder people don't walk alone because they are afraid of mainly for their physical security. And the refugees, they don't walk or they don't walk alone because they are victims of racism in the streets, especially if they are refugees and women. And LGBTs don't walk alone because they are afraid of the violence of the police, the violence of the others. So if you teach people to walk alone or to walk in a group, people learn how to defend themselves, and they are empowered, because walking is the first liberty that anyone can have, the freedom of displacement, and not being afraid of opening your front door and get out for a coffee, whether it is noon or whether it is midnight. After COVID, what I noted was that even when restaurants and coffee shops now opened, there were less women in the streets, much less than 1 year and a half ago. I live in the center of Oporto, and I always went to the cinema, to the theater, to have dinner, walking by myself. I am 1.70 feet tall, so I'm a big woman. I never have any kind of problems by walking alone. But I noted that there are fewer women walking alone and fewer refugees walking alone. Mm-hmm. And what happens is that people seem to be more afraid in this post-COVID era. Mm-hmm. So when if you don't walk, if you lose liberty, and when I think about walking in landscape, either being a hiker or either being a worker or whatever, the question is, how do you teach people how to walk? Mm-hmm. This seems to be a very stupid question, but the question is, how do you give people the mechanisms or the tools so that they learn how to walk alone? One thing that happened to me when I was in Oxford some years ago was that...
Could I interject?
Yes, of course. I'm sorry.
This is fantastic. No, I think some people are having to leave because it's the end of the hour and so I think this is a fantastic and much longer conversation, of course. And I love the story of the women walking to the factory and working, sort of leading each other, accompanying each other from house to house. I think that's an incredible, actually, tool or strategy to rethink this post-pandemic world. I think this question of limitations has always been present in conversations about walking art, walking pedagogy, and as you're pointing out very rightly now, they're very much amplified in this moment. So I think some of the tools our panelists have perhaps offered are really collective walking together, walking in groups. And I think in a way we could almost see that as a kind of revolutionary act again at this point post-pandemic, where we can actually get out into the world again and operate together. So I think you've offered an amazing group of tools for us to think forward with that. And I don't mean to cut you off. I have to hop off to another meeting as well. So I look forward to future conversations, but I just wanted to thank, as people are leaving the meeting, I want to thank our panelists, Dioni, Lampiri, for your work. Thank you so much. Anna Luyten, great to meet you here. Thank you so much. Ellie Berry, thank you. Sotirios, and thanks for being here. And Natacha and Miguel, great to meet you all. And obviously, I think an hour is a very quick moment to begin a conversation about such broad and exciting topics. So I hope to meet you in Precipice